out yesterday. I was sunbathing in the wind, holding onto my chair.
Yeah, it was quite chilly yesterday, that wind. No, we'll get cracking. And Lizzie, thank you for joining me again today. And it does work well between us. It's going to come from the heart again. I've done a little bit of research because I was well into this in the early 60s, which is a long time ago. And people must take it, do their own research, see where they go with it. Because today we're going to talk about the ancient times of Lemuria and Atlantis. And we see where we go with it. And if I struggle, I'm sure you'll help me out because it's in the moment. Um, we're not in the head with textbooks and all the jargon. We're just going to speak from our heart like we always do and see what happens. And let's go for it.
And if I don't know the answers, I'll just sit here and I'll make something up. I'm joking. I won't make it up, but
Yeah.
we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Because in fact, Lumerian times as well. I've not really done much. I don't know much about that either. I did do a bit before with one of the Hooners, but that's about it. So I'm gonna get you to start off, and you will teach me so much during this hour. I know it, and everyone else. So,
I hope to
so
God I can.
what got you interested in Atlantis in the first place? How did you originally, all those years ago, what made you interested in that? Was it part of your spiritual journey, or how did you come about it? And before the internet was, as available as it is, how did you find your research, and were you reading books? Just sort of start off. Let us all know how you came about looking into Atlantis.
Lizzie, thank you for that. That's a good introduction. I think that's the best way to go about it. Um, I think in my teenage years, I didn't do what most guys do when you're teenagers, go out clubbing, dancing, and having a good time, disco dancing. I
Just
was
does
very,
that now. It does that now.
I was very shy
Sorry,
then.
Rob.
I was very sort of homely lad. I think I must have chosen this path many years ago because I've never settled down, never had children, never married. And all I've done most of my life is study. And I suppose the time now is where I've come out of the shadows. And if I can teach this stuff to younger generations, then so be it. Around about 1962, 1963, 62, I left school and I started work more or less straight away. Worked nearly all my life. And it was in those early years, as I say, I didn't do what normal teenagers do. And I sat at home with my parents studying. And I got into a lot of esoteric books. Um, some of the books that I've read is by Alice Bailey. A lot is by Helena Blavatsky. And that was The Secret Doctrine, which is what most of this information is based on. 1962 right up to 1967, 68, hours and hours of studying. And at that time, so I was told from clairvoyance, two spirit guides come very close to me at the age of 13. One of them was Katumi, who's an ascended master, and the other one was a Tibetan monk, Dwal Kul. And this is why I have a great fascination with Tibet, Lhasa, Sikkim, all in the Himalayan foothills. And I think some of that information is still there. Interestingly, on YouTube a few days ago in our group, there was a monastery, I think it was a monastery, where they took the wall down and they found these scrolls, thousands of them. And I just hope the governments of the world will release that information. It will all be in ancient Sanskrit or Tibetan language, but let's hope they don't keep it secret because we need that information.
It's not secret. It's not secret right now, is it? If it's on YouTube.
No, that's true, but the scrolls, and there are many, many of them, I just hope that scholars will unroll them, translate them, and give us the information. Because even those in 1947, the Dead Sea Scrolls, I think there's still a lot of those that have never seen the light of day, which is a shame because we need our history and we need to know who we truly are. And that's been kept from us. This is why I think this is why we got so many people asleep, what we call normies or unawake. And to a great extent, it's not their fault. We're not being taught what we should be taught in school. It's literally gone backwards. Lhasa, Sikkim, all in the Himalayan foothills. And I think some of that information is still there. Interestingly, on YouTube a few days ago in our group, there was a monastery, I think it was a monastery, where they took the wall down and they found these scrolls, thousands of them. And I just hope the governments of the world will release that information. It will all be in ancient Sanskrit or Tibetan language, but let's hope they don't keep it secret because we need that information.
It's not secret. It's not secret right now, is it? If it's on YouTube.
No, that's true, but the scrolls, and there are many, many of them, I just hope that scholars will unroll them, translate them, and give us the information. Because even those in 1947, the Dead Sea Scrolls, I think there's still a lot of those that have never seen the light of day, which is a shame because we need our history and we need to know who we truly are. And that's been kept from us. This is why I think this is why we got so many people asleep, what we call normies or unawake. And to a great extent, it's not their fault. We're not being taught what we should be taught in school. It's literally gone backwards. So,
Ron, I just turn your volume on your laptop. Is it on quite loud? Because every time I talk, I can hear myself echoing. I don't know if it's me or you.
all right, let's check it out.
Sorry, Ron.
No, I think we're okay.
Yeah, okay. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Carry on. Carry on.
Okay. Right. I think in the academic world and the scholarly world, they always say Atlantis was just a myth. It never really existed. And they poo-poo it and just say it's nonsense. But I can't prove one way or the other. Of course I can't. You can't either. But from the ancient mystery schools, it does exist. It did exist. And it's through many periods of time. Lemuria came first, and that, according to what I've just researched again recently, it's nearly 200 million years ago. That's a long way back. The Earth itself is about 4.5 billion years old. So we've been here a long time. If our history is right, or it's just a total lie, yeah, we may have been cavemen many years ago. We may have gone around with clubs and totally uneducated. But I feel there's been great civilizations on this planet, far more advanced than what we are today. And you only have to look at some of the buildings. And I think we've actually gone backwards in education rather than forward.
Me too.
A lot of things that were built during that period, we don't have the technology today. And quite a bit of it is about hidden technology that we're supposed to know about and we don't. But going back to Lemuria, through those ancient mystery schools, and the one I was very involved with at a young age was the Theosophical Society, and they've got offices in Madras in India, London, and I think it's New York. And I think they're still going today, as far as I know. And a lot of it rang true to me. I think when you understand about past lives and all the lives that we've lived, that's another subject, because I think there's only about 25% believe in past lives. And I find that very sad. I know we've touched on it before about, well, you have one life and that's it, make the most of it. If you do bad to other people, don't worry about it, because you'll get away with it, because once you're dead, you're dead. That's not true.
Yeah.
I would never believe that, because I can
No,
feel
I think the whole of our lives we're just lied to about everything. I mean, it's very interesting because I was at my parents' yesterday, and even talking about, my mum said she felt better when she went to the beach and she had a paddle. And I said, that's because you're grounding yourself. I won't say anything bad about my mum, obviously, but like you could tell that she was just a bit like, okay, whatever. But even that in itself, like just a basic, I mean, I'm grounding right now as we speak on my grounding mat. Got one under my feet right now. But you know, this sort of thing I wouldn't have had a clue about 5 years ago. None of it, because, and like you say, that's not my fault and it's no one else's fault, apart from the people that have been, this plan that has been like set out, very finely orchestrated plan to keep us all enslaved. Um, but I don't want to digress off onto that. But you know what you're talking about there with the technology and like the buildings. Oh my goodness, we have gone backwards, so backwards. I mean, we should be flying around in cars right now, not electric ones, but we should be. Like, if you look at some of the technology and the buildings that were built, like you say, what's boards? We shouldn't even have to Zoom. We should be like telepathically communicating with everyone by now, surely, isn't it? It's fascinating stuff. But yeah, we've been prohibited. That's the word that's coming up.
Interesting you say that, Lizzie, because this is why I enjoy talking to you, because you give me downloads. Can't do it with everybody. And what you just said then is, because of being telepathic, this is where we were, because we are going into the golden age of 1,000 years of peace and prosperity, which we're right on the brink now. This is why society is breaking down. The riots in France, Israel's got problems now, and they did say Israel would be left till last, but that's another big subject. The UK is second to last, and we know what's going on globally. But going back to Lemuria, it's a harmonic that in that period of time, that was a golden age, and it fell in light and frequency. And what followed thousands of years later was the period of Atlantis, which we were more down solid 3D dimensional like we are now. But during the times of Lemuria, what one knew, we all knew, and we were very telepathic. And it was a beautiful age. And for many, many thousands of years, it was paradise on earth. But interestingly,
Yeah.
you've got the maps, and those maps, I will give a recommendation here, literally came from Theosophical Society. And I think they were brought through from very advanced mediums at the time. And it does show what Lemuria looked like over a period of several thousands of years. And okay,
I'll just start off explaining why we look so different. This is part two. Part one had to be ended abruptly, some personal issues that I had to deal with unexpectedly. So apologies for that. we haven't done some magician quick change, but yeah, so this is why we're doing it in two parts. So anyway, how are you, Ron?
I'm fine, thanks very much, Lizzie. And
I love
yeah,
it when you do your lovely accent. Oh yes, it's beautiful.
you do
So
realise I'm as common as muck,
yeah,
drag, dragged up in London.
it's your phone voice. It's your telephone voice. I like it.
Thank you. Um, I think to kick off again, do you want to go back to the maps again, and I'll talk us through them.
Okay, so I've the first one that you sent me. I'll screen share this one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um. Right. Hang on. Okay. So I want to this one. Right. Has that come up? Can you see that?
yeah, that was the one we spoke about before we had to finish abruptly. Um,
Okay.
Over many thousands of years, this is one of the maps that was brought through via very good clairvoyance at the time from the Theosophical Society, which was my early training. And this is about the last period of Atlantis, which goes back to about 10,500 years ago. And if you look at the Atlantic Ocean, because behind where you've got the grey areas, which is the original Atlantis, and then superimposed on that, you've got what the world looks like today. But in the Atlantic Ocean was the last residue of Atlantis, which they called Poseidon. And there was another catastrophe, um, very similar to Noah's flood in the Bible. And that was when the last of what we know of Atlantis, that was when it sank. But
Right.
it took probably about 100, 200,000 years to disappear completely. Um, just going back to that map, if you look at Russia, which we know today, and you look at the middle of Russia, a lot of that was under the sea. Um, Looking at other maps that you have here, one of the oldest land masses on the earth is Australia, believe it or not. And over probably nearly a million years, it's never been covered by ocean. And also interesting, going back to the times of Lemuria, that was from the Theosophical Society point of view, that was what they called the third root race, which goes in periods of time. And that was what Lemuria was all about. We were more in solid form. And as I said earlier, that was the golden age where what one knew, we all knew. And obviously, we're going back hundreds of thousands of years here. But during that Lemurian period, I don't know if you want to put the map up on that.
Hold on, caller.
Yeah,
Hold
don't
on.
run away.
It's just not very good at this either. Uh, right, did
Well,
I?
well, I'm a novice at this as well. Actually, my throat's not good today, so I'm sorry if I sound a bit
Oh,
croaky.
bless you. It's because you talk too much, Ron. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
only
too much
joking.
waffle.
No, not waffle. Right, is this a different one or the same one?
That's it.
Can
That's
you
the one.
see that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Okay, right, we'll kick off again then.
Mm.
Um, Probably going back nearly a million years. If you look at the grey areas, most of the land mass at that time was in the southern hemisphere below the equator. And that was the third root race of Lemuria, and the capital was Mu. But looking at the Earth as it is today, because you can see that superimposed over it, because the grey areas was Lemuria, you can still see that Australia was still covered by land. And obviously, what's under the Pacific Ocean and Atlantic Ocean in that period of time, obviously, was landmass. If we go through to a geological period and another catastrophe, then those lands could rise up again, because it has said that in biblical texts that these lands will rise again. So, and I think that's probably due to the tectonic plates. But if you have a good look at that map, and if you look at Africa and the Sahara Desert and Namibia, most of that was ocean. And also Tibet, where we've got the highest mountain on the planet, I think it's 26,000 feet or a little bit higher than that. That was ocean. And where they've dug fossil bits and pieces out of the rock, there are seashells and very early forms of sea life. And that's 26,000 feet up. So it just shows them how long we've been on the Earth, and obviously the periods of change.
All right, hello again, part 3.
Yes, part 3, Lizzie. And yeah, we've had several goes at this. Yeah, we've got different clothes on, different colour shirt, different background. No,
Yes.
when we last finished talking about Atlantis and Lemuria, I think we put up the maps, didn't we, of 200,000 years ago. The last bit of Atlantis was approximately 10,500 years, and that was Poseidon in the Atlantic Ocean. There are other trains of thought that says it's in the Mediterranean, but I have to go with what my gut feeling says. Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean. On that note, I haven't read this anywhere, but this is my gut feeling. This is from me, nobody else. I'm convinced in my heart centre that Wales was part of Atlantis. Because of because of the tectonic plates and the shifting of the Earth's crust, because land rises and falls over many thousands of years. And if you look at the rock structure, most of England and the southeast of England, reasonably flat. They call it sandy loam. And it's a different soil. We've got very ancient rocks in Wales, the same as we have in the top of Scotland and the Shetland Islands. And I'm pretty convinced that Wales was one of the dying remnants of Atlantis. It's a different culture, it's different people. Nothing like the Anglo-Saxon Danes and the Norman Vikings. They are totally different people, different bloodline, and they tend to be shorter. But I'm sure that the Welsh is part of Atlantis. Always thought that. And now I live here, I'm even more convinced of it. So
That's interesting, because Egypt's got links to Wales as well, hasn't it? With the Welsh language.
I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a guy, I think one of our friends, Barry's got a book, hasn't he? I don't know if you were on the Zoom that time, but I saw something on Iconic TV, and they did a walk through Wales, and they were talking about there was this gentleman who they interviewed, and I think sadly he passed away now, but he was talking about the connection of the hieroglyphics and the Welsh language. So for example, like he related to, I think it was like the fact that I can't even think of the examples now because I wasn't prepared for this, but he was talking about how the Welsh word for blue, is glass, and how it relates to certain, and there were a lot of more specific examples than that. But yeah, apparently a lot of the hieroglyphics relate to the Welsh words, if that makes sense.
Well,
So
I'm blown away
that's
with
quite
that one.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. That's something for you to get your head into, isn't it?
Yeah,
Something else.
bit more homework after school.
It beats the tension. Anyway. As you were, carry on, Ron, carry on.
No, I first come across Atlantis and Lemuria, oh God, 1962, 63, quite young men. And I read loads and loads of books. My introduction to it was from the Theosophical Society. It's like an esoteric spiritual society. Goes back to the 1870s. I've still got the original books, and it talks about the time when we was more in the etheric realms than the physical, because we've had the second root race, which is Hyperborea, which is mainly up near the North Pole, because apparently there are lands there, even though on a globe they say it's just ocean. So I'll come back to that one in a minute.
The famous Black Rock Mountain. Oh,
That's
did
the
I say
one.
that?
No, the second root race was Hyperborea, which is part of Greenland, all around the Arctic Circle. Then we went into a golden age, which was peace, prosperity for everybody. We were quite evolved then. And that might have been the time when there were giants on the earth, because they definitely existed. No two ways about it. And I think when you see these books written about forbidden archaeology, it's what the establishment don't want us to know. And they deny it. And there's enough evidence out there. There's skulls been dug up, human skulls, same as we have today. But my God, they're about 10 times our skull size. So they were definitely were
And
giants.
photographs. I mean, you show
Yeah,
people these photographs and they still don't believe it. They're like, yeah, interesting,
very.
interesting.
No,
So
going
what
back
about
to,
Ireland? Because Ireland's a very spiritual hub, isn't it? And when you talk about the stones, because Scotland have got the stones that connected to Ireland, and that was known as the Giants. Was it
Causeway.
the Giants Causeway? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, I find those stones really interesting because when I was up in Scotland many years ago, it's called Fingal's Cave, and it's basalt rock, and they're all hexagonal. And there's another place in Northern Ireland somewhere, um, but the one in Fingal's Cave, you take a little wooden boat, only about 12 people, and you actually go into the cave. Incredible. But why are they hexagonal? Nature has some funny ways of doing things sometimes. Not man-made, it's just natural rock formation. And I think the only other place on the earth where it exists is in Northern Ireland. Not sure what the place is called, but that must have been part of Atlantis at some stage. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because I know that those hexagonal stones are in Ireland because I've seen people film there, and I know that they're the same as the Scottish ones. So they think that it once was connected in that way because obviously Scotland's not connected to Ireland anymore, nor are we. But yeah, that hexagonal thing is interesting, isn't it? How
Yeah,
many sides has a hexagon got?
I think
One,
it's
two,
5.
3, 4, 5. Hmm. I'm just trying to do a bit of geometry there, but obviously I can't get anything at the minute as to
Yeah.
why that might be. Because they're perfectly shaped as well, aren't they? So
Yeah. Well, it goes back to, I think it's Pythagoras talked about the platonic solids, because there are 5 of those. And the hexagonal one is actually in those platonic solids. But it's interesting it forms in that basalt rock.
and
Um,
it's yeah.
but no, going back to Lemuria, we had, this goes back to the Fibonacci spiral of the 1, 3, 5 were the numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
I, I'm not an expert on that, so I won't talk about it because
Yeah.
I've just dropped myself right in it.
The Fibonacci sequence. Yeah, I know how that works. It's yeah.
Well, on the musical scale, you go into disharmony and harmony depending on the frequency and the note. That's what the Fibonacci spiral is all about. In Lemurian times, we were in a harmonious tone where we had a collective consciousness that what one knew, we all knew. And we're going to go back into that because we've got separate consciousness. We are in disharmonious at the moment. And that might be, I think it's in the Hindu scriptures, we're ending the time of Kala Yuga, which is the dark time. But we're now going back into the light and the golden age, and we will be harmonious again. So therefore, what one knows, we all know, because we have a collective consciousness. But at the moment, I haven't got a clue what's going on in your mind. I don't know what you're thinking, because I've got my brain, you've got yours. But when we're all one,
Right.
yeah, keep it clean.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's interesting in these notes and tones. This is something probably when we do the next one on healing, we need your help on that one because I know you're an expert.
Well, that'd be a really good one to talk about because the Fibonacci sequence is based on let me just use my pen to do this because it starts off with the 1. So the 1 plus 1 is 2, and then what you do is you add the 2, add 1, and which is a 3, and then you go sort of into the first number and the equals number and add those together. So the next one would be 5.
That's it.
So you've got because you'd have 3 plus, yeah. So it would be 3 plus 2, and then the next one would be 5 plus 3. So the next one would be 8, and so on and so on and so on. But I think that is a sequence, not just of harmony and music. I think it's a creation of most things that they use, isn't it? Or is it just sound? I don't know.
I think it's it's what they call the creational pattern of life. Everything of building blocks of matter, spirituality and matter come together in a waveform, and it's called the flow of life pattern. And everything stems from that.
Yeah.
So nature has the flow of life.
So is the Fibonacci sequence the same as the flower of life in maths?
I'm not sure on that. It could well be. I think both of us need to do some research on that.
We'll talk about that next time. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Now, going back to Lemuria, it was a golden age. It was total pure love, which is what we're going to go back into. Everything was harmonious. I think on time spans, very difficult because we're here 3-dimensionally in linear time. The Aborigines, I've mentioned this before, they call it the dream time. And that's a job for me to get my head around that because it's not real. It's an illusion. Because we're holographic in nature, the real world is in the 4th, 5th dimensional worlds, which is what we're going into. And this 3-dimension, although it's called time, there's a start time, middle time, and an end time. In those higher realms, it's all oneness. There is no time. And that is very difficult. But I had that in the time of Lemuria.
Yeah, it's difficult to get your head around, but the way I look at it for people who struggle with this, because I mean, I haven't been awake very long. I've 4 or 5 years out of my mature existence. I found it difficult, but what I found a way of like describing it is a bit like a massive glass hotel with millions of floors. So each floor is our perceived linear time. So say when I had my child, then he was a toddler. It's all happening at once, and you can see it through the glass floors because it's all at the same time. Does that make sense to you, Ron? I hope that makes sense because if it doesn't, it makes sense to me.
That's a brilliant deduction because what that's triggered in me is a biblical text wasn't translated correctly, but it says, "In my Father's house there are many mansions." that should be dimensions, not mansions. Because in a
Mm.
house with a glass floor, you're looking through the ceiling and you're looking at different levels of time and space. Because even going back to that second root race of Hyboria, which was the very earlier times, probably maybe a million years ago, it still exists, but not in this reality. It's in another dimension. And although we look at the North Pole now as just ocean, and you can't actually get there because it's a vortex, in actual fact, on another overtone, in another dimension, it still exists. And there is land there, and there are people living there, but not in this reality. So
Mm.
that's another one we will cover when we do Flat Earth.
That's another mind bender. But I
Oh,
tell you
yeah.
what, the whole the world is a simulation, and the whole holographic scenario actually has been coming up in my consciousness. Not me, but things I see online and things that I've been picking up and things that have been posted. Like, it's been coming up a lot for me personally. And also the Mandela effect, which I think would also be an awesome subject to cover at some point. But yeah, it's very, very, as you say, it's like a dream state. So I think somebody, I can't say who it was, can't remember, but somebody said once, how do you know that when you're asleep, that's your real life, and this is when you're dreaming? When what you perceive to be your day-to-day activity, your day-to-day life, how do you know that's not your dream? But when you're asleep, you go to where you're supposed to be, which is interesting.
Well, goes back to the Aborigines again when they call it the dream time, because their real world is not in this dimension. And there are many aspects of us. Although you are here, I'm here in a physical body, there are many aspects of us living simultaneously in the higher realms. And going back to the guy, Kent Dunn, he said we are hard holograms. So do we really exist? Okay, we are solid, we can feel each other, we've got bones, we've got flesh, but we are still a frequency. If
Yeah.
you go to a certain frequency, you would literally disappear out the room. And a lot of
Mm.
yogis can do this. They can reappear,
Yeah.
disappear. And we had that ability during the changeover between Lemuria and Atlantis because of the adepts and the sorcerers at the time of Atlantis. They started to play with dimensional time and space. And that's when we started to fall. And then we had the reptilian invasion from the Orion Nebula, which caused even more wars and atomic wars. And apparently that's why we have so many deserts, because a lot of the greenery, jungle, forest, even in the Sahara Desert, that was tropical paradise, but it was wiped out by the wars between Lemuria and Atlantis. And at that time, the Atlanteans had what they call the death ray. Well, when you look at it, and that's what destroyed the earth almost, that might have been to do with the biblical flood as well. But that
Mm.
death ray, when you look today of what's going on in Hawaii and the Jew energy weapons, DEW, direct energy weapons, does not history repeat itself? And I think this time we will learn the lesson and we will get through this. But
As you were speaking, then I just had something come through. So I was listening to you, but I had to write it down in case we moved on from it. But when we talk about not being a reality, so I've heard people say that unless we witness the tree falling, we don't hear it. Or does it actually fall? Yeah. So we only we only see we only perceive something when it's being observed. Yeah.
yeah,
And it took me back to children who put their hands behind over their eyes. If they can't see it, it's not happening. And they believe that, which I talking about how we perceive things. And is it actually, they say that the simulation is not there unless you're there to observe it, which to me in my 3D brain says, but how does it know where everything was when I left earlier? So it's all very mind bending, but I just have that vision of a child hiding behind their eyes and no one can see them because they're doing that. And I just had to say that. So it's very, very
Interesting.
interesting.
You triggered something in me saying that, because
Hmm.
I've always had the thought that if there was no souls on the earth, like you, me, and everybody else, 8 billion apparently, if none of us was here, because don't forget, we are creator gods. What we think, we create.
Hmm.
So therefore, if there was nobody on the earth, would the earth exist?
Only if somebody was looking at it.
Yeah. So therefore, what is perception? Is it an illusion? Because we see the earth, whatever shape or form it's in, whether it's square, pear shape, flat, round,
And
holographic, or a tube torus. If none of us are here, does it exist? Because it
mm,
isn't the thinking of a collective mind set or global mind that the earth is here. So if there's no one here, does the earth exist? It's an interesting.
equally, but equally, even though we are here and it exists, we would need something much bigger than the earth to observe it, to keep everything in Mama G in motion. So regardless of whether we're here or not, or how many are here, we're tiny little specks on this plane. Yeah. So but to observe the whole of the earth, we need something bigger to perceive it or to observe it, to create the reality of it.
Yeah.
Okay, now I have dislocated my brain.
I know we're going off on a tangent on this one. I'm trying to stick to Atlantis and Lemuria.
All right.
I think
Okay.
we've done enough on it. And I know we had part 1, part 2. We're now on part 3. I'm not sure how long we've been running for. Yeah, normally the time comes up on the screen, but there's nothing on there. But we are
I
recording,
don't
which
know.
is the main thing.
That's
Um,
strange.
yeah, because it normally says how long you've been running for, but no, can't see anything on there at all. No. Anyway, we'll keep going. At the moment, the majority of people on the planet, for whatever reason, are convinced that it's a globe. We live on a ball. And you can't argue with people because they just lose it and they just go absolutely ballistic. And they think we're nutters. We think we're conspiracy dopes, because when we say it's flat, they say, well, it can't be. Look at all the pictures. But then if you look at NASA, I always say what it stands for, never a straight answer.
Well, I think the problem is people are going with pictures that are set up by a psyop group called the Flat Earth Society. So
Yeah.
they have got the first place you'll go when you research something. I'm not going to mention like search engines or anything like that because I don't want
No.
to have to edit too much. But you're directed straight away to this psyop group, which isn't what most FE people perceive the realm to be. I've got to be very careful with my words. But yeah, people think of it as a thin disc flying through space. That's how they are perceived to think of it that way because of this psyop internet group that they are led to by the big tech companies. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, go on, carry on. Just be very careful with the words, just because you know what they're like.
I know.
We get on the naughty step again.
I think the reason why people struggle with flat Earth is because they perceive it as totally flat, just like a tabletop, and you fall over the edge, which is total nonsense. Um, Going back to biblical text again, they talk about the firmament, and there's definitely a firmament. In actual fact, although it's flat, it is a ball in some respects, because you've got the waters above and the waters below, and the firmament is the waters above. So therefore, I think there might be two, possibly three layers of firmament, and that does create a circle in a sense. So
Yeah, the
below
dome.
you've got the dome, yeah, but there's also a dome underneath where you've got the waters beneath. And if we go into the times of Tartaria, when we had various floods over different periods of time, and that was in Atlantean times as well, where the floods come up from the earth itself, and there's a cleansing, purification. So you've got waters above, waters below. So you are looking at a round circle, but also you're looking at a circle that's flat within another circle. So therefore, you still got flat Earth, but then it's a toroidal field as well, because you've got the influx and you've got the outflux. And if you look at the apple, just an ordinary common garden apple, and you cut it in half, yeah, well done. That is brilliant. It's the same as the Earth. You've got the toroidal field going in, you've got it going out at the bottom and coming in, and that's what creates time and space, and it creates our reality. And it is a toroidal field. There are various arguments about globalist, globe people, flat Earth people, and I think there's a third element to this: toroidal field people as well. I've always thought that, and that's my gut feeling, because they do exist, but not as we're shown. We're not on a spinning ball. We don't go round the universe. We are stationary. And I
He takes the lands around our lands
yes,
are extra terror, and that's where the extraterrestrials
yeah,
are coming from, maybe. But I'm going to get rid of that right now because that's another topic that we need Alan to come on to, I think, because
yeah,
that would be a good one as well, wouldn't it? Do our own little
yeah.
theory on where we live. Let me just change my background back. It's just distracted me.
That's it. We're back to the
Add that
fireplace.
one in.
Back home.
Back home. I mean, I could like go here, but now I'm just being a kid. Okay, I'm in Doctor Who's TARDIS now, so I'll just come back down to 3D because I have to. Hold on. Yeah. Okay, you carry on, Ron. I'll just take this off. There.
Brilliant. I think that's wonderful. Your talent never ceases to amaze me.
Well, I'm back in moments, Susie.
Well, we carry on with flat Earth for a bit. If you've got a flat Earth and you've got the ice walls and you've got the dome, I know there are 4 gates, and Kent Dunn talked about this all 4 or 5 years ago. He talks about the East Gate and the West Gate, but I think there's a North Gate and a South Gate. And I've seen it on various videos, and they're entrance and exit points between different realities. Kent Dunn says when we go in the 4th and 5th dimension of consciousness, we will go into those new worlds, and that's through the ice walls. And I think there are people, privileged people, elites, that travel backwards and forwards, but they do it via submarine because it's always about the waters. And I think they go under the ice wall And where the ETs live are in those new worlds. Because going back to biblical text again, it says, behold, there will be a new heaven and a new earth. Well, the new earth is through the ice walls, and you get different constellations as well. And that's where they travel backwards and forwards to the moon, backwards and forwards to Mars and Venus, and they go through the ice walls. There's nothing to do with space and sending off rockets. It's total BS.
We've got people in the truth community, very well-known people, claiming to have travelled to space and that the world is round, blah, 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 which straight away puts me off them, because I think either they're not legit, they're either controlled in some way, or if there is such a thing as space, which I don't believe there is, because I mean, for a start, if the sun lights up the whole earth and it's how many million miles away, 90 something million miles away,
That's
how come
BS.
space is dark?
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, a lot of people who claim to have traveled, whether it be astral traveling or whether it be in a spaceship, how are people still believing the word of one person, and like, if you're astral traveling, you're gonna image in your mind, because you don't actually physically go there, you're in your mind, you're gonna see what you've been indoctrinated to believe. So, but like you say, if it is with the firmament and everything else on it, it's going to look slightly round, but it doesn't mean that the land isn't level, and that we're spinning. Oh, we've started another topic now. I'll go. I love that. Effie, I can't say that word too much.
No.
But anyway, let's go back to Atlantis. Do you feel that a lot of our souls are from those times in this meat suit now?
Wonderful question. Brilliant for that, because if you look at karma, retribution, as you sow, so shall you reap. A lot of the evil ones and those that done wrong in Atlantean times are back here now, because what we faced in Atlantis, with all the destruction and the death ray lasers and the crystals that they couldn't control, and you got the big earth crystals, which is as tall as a man or a woman, massive earth crystals. It caused the earth a displacement. It nearly destroyed the earth. And those people are coming back now, reincarnated, in my opinion, to face justice. But this time they won't get away with it, because they will face, well, to me, total annihilation. Because many, many souls, whether they're dark side or light side, reincarnate time and time and time again. That's now finished, apparently.
Well, hopefully.
The reincarnational cycle has been switched off.
Oh, has it been switched off? That's good. That's good.
That's good, yeah. So I don't think we will leave the earth when we go through ascension, which is, they call the big flash, which I think is imminent. I think it will happen before 2026. Could happen while I'm on holiday next week. Who knows?
I've already got my house in the middle of nowhere. My house, the one that I've been manifesting, I'm finally there. And I've also bought Bora Bora Island for all of us. I've already got that. I would film from there, but it was a bit warm. I thought, I'll go back to my other house. I'll leave my mansion on the island for another time. So I think manifestation is a big thing. That was a joke, by the way. I haven't actually got a house in the middle of nowhere, but I will have a house in the middle of nowhere. I will. Yeah, I think the reincarnation thing was confusing me, because I was told there'd be a light and you'd be tricked, that you have to go towards the light. Then I was told there were two lights one's brighter than the other. And I thought, oh my God, it must be tragic enough to die. But like to have that confusion of ooh, left, right, which maybe is why we need to learn to use our discernment right now in this leaf suit, because maybe we will need it at the pearly gates. But yeah, let's hope it's been
Well,
made a
they
bit
call it
simpler.
they call it the false light, because when you die, you see this amazing loving light. You meet your family, your mum and dad when you was a child. You have like, it's like going to the cinema and watching a film. You
Mm,
have a total regression of your whole life, and it probably only lasts about 10 minutes in real time. But obviously, in that dying state, you have a life review. And while you're going through that view, you're going through like a lift shaft, and your mind and your consciousness is being shredded. This is why when you come back again, you don't remember anything. Now, to me, that is evil, because all that lifetime you spent and all the lessons you've learned, tough ones, good ones, bad ones, they have to start all over again, to me, is
mm.
evil. And apparently that's to do with ETs and the Dark Lords and the reptilians have got AI consciousness, which is totally not against Christ consciousness. I think that's where we lose and have our mind shredded. Because when we come here, even though we're born, we should, when we get to about 5 or 6, start to have our consciousness restored. So we know what the lifetimes have been. We know what lessons we need to learn. We choose our parents. And this is something we will be reinstated when we go into the fourth and fifth dimension of consciousness, which we had in the Lemurian times and which we're going to get back. And we will know, we will remember people. We will know who we've been with and who we haven't been with. We know what lessons we need to learn from each other. And that would be a wonderful time of bliss, because we would do
Now,
it with a loving heart and not
now
ceremony.
that's a holiday to look forward to, isn't it, eh? Now that's a
A
holiday.
big
I
holiday.
can't wait for that one. Bring it on.
Bring it on. I think
What else
probably,
would like to talk
Lizzie,
about?
yeah,
Are you done with Atlantis now, or is there more for you to cover? Or
I think just to finish it off, I'll do a quick recap. Going back from my teaching from the Theosophical Society, we're now in the 5th root race, which is called the Aryan race. We will go into a 6th root race, which would probably be when we get into the 4th and 5th dimensions. And therefore, we will be at a much higher frequency, going back to Lemurian times again, because we go through, it is a spiral, it is a tube torus. We go up in a spiral, we go down, then we go back up again, and then we go down, all in cycles of time over thousands of
of
years.
Atlantis in the
Yep,
same shape?
that's it. And that was the 4th root race. The 3rd root race was the Lemurians. Hyperborea, which we weren't totally physical, 2nd root race, probably going back millions of years on this one. But in the higher realms of dimensional frequency, they still exist. They all exist. They're still there, but on a frequency level. Because don't forget, our physical sight only sees in a very narrow band of light, sight, and consciousness. There's so much out there that we're not aware of. So I think that will finish it off. It's up to people to do their own research.
When you talk about the route races, did you miss out the beets? The beetroot race.
Beetroot race.
Oh, it's so funny.
That was the red root race. Actually, apparently, the Native American Indians, America, they were the Atlanteans, red root race.
Oh.
And most of the Polynesian, um, Peruvians, Polynesian, don't have a lot of body hair, very smooth skinned. You could say
Nice.
the Orientals, most of those from the throwback of time were part of the Lemurian third root race. The biggest mystery to me, and I still haven't solved it, is the Aborigines. They are the very early third root race, and they still have collective consciousness, because what one knows, they all know. Not many of the originals left now because they've interbred, but they don't fit the normal body norm. Red root race, Native American Indians, Atlantean race. Oriental races, Japanese, Chinese, Peruvians, Southeast Asia, goes back to Lemuria. But the Aborigines are the oddball. They don't fit where they belong because they're more Northern European. They've got a very deep bone structure, strong eyebrows, strong jawbones, very hairy, which is more Northern European. So how did they get down to Australia? Also, looking at different time periods of the Earth where it's been flooded, not flooded, lands have submerged, other lands have come back up. The oldest landmass on the Earth is Australia.
They've just found 7,000 islands by Japan as well, haven't they? Or 70,000? 7,000 or islands by Japan.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's a strange one, Australia. It is a continent. It's massive in size. It's not like we see on conventional maps. That's more BS. Nothing like what we think it is. And it is the oldest landmass on Earth. Probably going back hundreds of millions of years, never been covered by the sea. So that's another mystery.
yeah.
So, and the people that lived there, the original Aborigines, don't fit the norm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's right by Antarctica.
Yeah. So at one time, were the gateways opened between the New Worlds and the Australian world? It's another possibility. And that's why they're so different.
So fascinating. So fascinating.
I think we're done on that, Lizzie, don't you?
Yes, I think so. Thank you, Ron. I'm really looking forward to the next one. So the next one we'll talk about frequencies, healing, clothing.
Clothing, healing, frequency medicine, vibrational healing.
Tangent yet again.
Because we are holographic, we are a frequency. And as I said earlier in this last take, that at a certain frequency, we can actually disappear out of this time and space. Going back to the Flower of Life, which Drumbelow done nearly 30 years ago now, because I was on that, when you do the macabre breathing, and it's about the mudras and the in-breath and the out-breath, there are 17, but the 18th breath, which you have to go to your inner self, I've never practiced it, so I'm still here. But if you get that right, you literally disappear out of time and space.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably pass out before I got to number 8, let alone 18.
I've nearly passed out a few times because when you take really deep breaths, you can feel yourself going out of your body.
Yeah. We did that in the monastery of Lucy. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, very powerful.
Anyway, thank you very much to our audience for listening, and we apologise for the delay. But we will be back in a few weeks' time.
Yeah.
With a very interesting topic, which in fact I'm really looking forward to. So I'm gonna actually do some research on that if I get time. When I get time.
Yeah. What is time?
Yeah, what is time? So shall we say goodbye to our audience and then we'll have a quick chat afterwards?
I say goodbye to the audience. Also to our very beloved soul family.
Yes. We love you all so very much. Every single one of you. And the dogs and the cats and the animals that you've got.
The budgie girls and cockatoos and whatever.
and your houses and your lands and your feet and your books, everything about you. We love every part of you.
No,
Bless you. Well, thank you for listening.
no,
All right.
going back to our soul family, a big thank you to you. They're there for us. We're there for them. We're not any better than anybody else in humanity. We may be more awake, and that's not easy for us because we've had a lot of put downs, a lot of ridicule, and we've been, well, said we're nutters and wacko jobs.
So I'm just going to put a picture of the Soul family up just so that people can realize who we're talking about.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
There they are.
I think that is brilliant. Lizzie, I don't know how you do it, though.
My head's gone.
I think that's definitely, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, that's where we're going. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We're all quackers.
Right, let's say goodbye then.
Brilliant.
Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll be back real soon. Take care. Bye for now.
Bless you all. Thank you, Lizzie. Bless you all. Love you to bits. Yeah, it's only through love, compassion, and knowing we can do it. And that's the soul family as well. They're with us. 100%.
That's wrong. Press stop.